Joined now by our international affairs commentator, Doug Herbert. Doug, hi. This is a non-binding deal. There are quite a lot of exceptions that are carved out here. Will it work?
Well, it depends how you define work, and I'm not trying to skirt the question, Kate. But seriously, you used a very key word in your introduction there. You said that these are voluntary reductions, and they are not legally binding. No one is bound to cut their gas consumption by 15% in the period you named. So what's this about? I think the most important thing is for the EU to show that it's been doing what, to much of the world's surprise, it has managed more or less to do since the Russian invasion. Forge a sort of wall of unity. Show that it can actually act together in common cause when faced with what is perceived as a clear and present danger. In this case, Russia, its invasion of Ukraine, and Russia using gas and energy as a weapon, weaponizing energy, using it as blackmail in this case. As the Czech Minister of Industry put it, what this is really about is EU member states showing that they will stand tall against Russian attempts to use energy supplies as a weapon against the European Union. Now, when you say, will it work? First of all, you mentioned those exemptions. There are a few notable exemptions. First of all, you had Greece, you had Portugal, you had Spain leading opposition to the plan. They didn't vote against it, but they led opposition. What they were opposed to is because these are countries that are not very much, they're not connected to or little connected to the Russian gas network, don't rely heavily on Russian gas. They were opposed to this sort of uniform, one-size-fits-all 15% target. So it raises the question, will they all end up cutting 15%? Will some do a lot less, maybe half of that? Hungary, which has been, yes, went along with sanctions, but has been basically opposed to everything else, has basically been much more on Putin's side than Europe's side throughout of this. Hungary just outright is opposed to the whole plan. Also among the exemptions are island states, those that really are seen as not having alternative energy supplies. Ireland is exempt. Malta is exempt. Cyprus is exempt. Sure, small states, Malta and Cyprus. But still, it's not a completely united frontier. Will it work? Right now, Europe is behind in its attempts to try to fill its gas storage tanks in time for winter. If it's a cold winter, it is going to bite hard because usually at this point, those storage tanks would be filled by now. And looking, obviously, Kate, for alternative sources of energy right now is very difficult because even if they get that liquefied natural gas, as you know, which is gas in liquid form, it must be converted. There's limited facilities to do that in Europe, so that's not an easy solution. They will not be able, in short, to fill the backlog of Russian gas that they're not going to be getting as a result of Putin turning off the spigot.
Now, speaking of Putin, it's always a dangerous move to try and predict what he might do next. But where does this leave the Russian leader?
The Russian leader is laughing all the way to the bank, literally. He's still making a bonanza off of his energy revenues, countries that are still buying energy from him. Remember, some countries are even, Hungary opted out of the oil sanctions altogether. So Putin's still making a lot of money from his energy supplies, and he thinks ultimately that Europe is shooting itself in the foot. He thinks that all of this is coming back like a boomerang to knock Europe down and knock Europe in the head, and that Europe's going to end up feeling the bite a lot more. What Putin's basically banking on is he is essentially using energy as a weapon, and his calculation is that as he turns that spigot off, Europeans will start to see the soaring energy prices. We've already seen that throughout this invasion. Early in the invasion, energy prices really soared before settling back a little bit, but they even shot up the other day when we heard about this Gazprom news. What Putin's basically banking on is that Russians are more resilient than Europeans. As he turns off that spigot, as the prices rise at the pump, public opinion in Europe is going to bend and wither a lot faster than the Russians, who are a lot more resilient and a lot more stoic. And that is going to ultimately lead to the crumbling of this facade of unity. We're already seeing cracks in the edifice despite Europe's attempts to present that united front. So Putin, he ain't even a fraction of scared, if you could say it like that.
All right, Doug Herbert, thank you so much for that insight.